Hello, hello, my fabulous friends. We are here with week 5. How is it week 5 already? Week 5 of the Gallery Wall Quilt Along. If you are new here, you can head over to alwaysexpectmore.com and put in Gallery Wall Quilt Along to get all the details, or you can just go down to the description box and I'll have details for you there. I designed a pattern called the Gallery Wall Quilt, and I did the whole thing in what I call the by sea version, and we're working on the by land version here, which is just a different colorway, different colors of the same quilt. So you can purchase that pattern in my pattern shop, carolinamorepatterns.com, and then you can come here for the free YouTube videos that will show you step by step how to make this quilt. So you'll need your pattern instructions, absolutely, but then I'll walk you through any tricky bits, though there's not a lot of tricky bits. A lot of it is pretty straightforward sewing. So today, for week 5, we're working on Unit D, which is the last of the units to put together our quilt. Once we have Unit D done, then next week we're going to put it all together and finish up our quilt top. By the end of today, we'll actually be able to just count the number of seams we have left until we're finished. And that's my favorite, saying I have, 8 seams left and then 7 seams left, and doing that countdown to the end. So after today, we're in countdown mode, which is the best. Okay. In the first video, we did all the cutting and I showed you how to fussy cut your pieces, and then we put everything into some sort of bags. These are my reusable project bags that I have, but whatever bags you used are fine, or whatever system you have. So we put them all into reusable project bags by week, and so I've got my Unit D right here. The first thing I have in here are the 2 half square triangles that were left over from Unit B. These 2 half square triangles were left over from Unit B, and I tucked them in here because we're going to be using them today. I also have my instruction page because I like to keep everything all together, and I'll have that right there so I can refer to it. And then I have all of my pieces. Now I've got my little product iron heating up, and if any of these pieces got a little bit of a crease in them, then I'll go ahead and take that out now with a iron. So this has a little curve to it, and I'll want to take that out just to make it easier. Okay, now I have myself all situated and I'm ready to start stitching. I'm going to start with the first piece of my instructions, and I'm also going to be referring to this sheet, which is my coloring sheet. If you made your own coloring sheet, you'll be referring to that, so that I make sure that I put all the fabrics in the right spots. There's a lot of different sizes in here, which makes for a really interesting quilt, but can also make it a little tricky when we're putting it together. We want to make sure that we're grabbing the right piece. So I have these lovely birch trees as my piece that I'm using first. And then remember, the top of this we did in Unit B. So this won't get a top, it's just going to get a bottom and sides. There we go, I've got my sides and my bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch those sides on. Turn the sewing machine on. There we go. And then I'm going to stitch the bottom on. Make sure that before you stitch any piece across a seam that you've pressed that seam. So I didn't have to press between stitching these because they're parallel seams, and you don't have to press parallel seams. But as soon as you've got something perpendicular that's running across, something that goes in a T shape, you need to press the seam before you add the other piece. And that just keeps everything lined up perfect. This quilt is like a jigsaw puzzle, and we have great instructions for putting it together, but you need the pieces to stay the right size. And it's all calculated based on that magic 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we want to make sure that we don't shrink that seam allowance by not pressing our seams properly. This fabric is directional, and you can see that I've got my birch trees going up. And also I have little birds here, so I want to make sure that my owl and my birds are facing up and I don't accidentally flip this upside down. So I'm just going to check my orientation and I'm correct here, and then this strip goes down on the bottom. And now we have the first step of Unit D complete. I'm going to set this aside. I've got a lot going on my table today, so I'm actually just going to set it here behind me. And hopefully I don't forget that I put it there, because I regularly forget what I put behind me. So we'll see how I do. Okay, so now I have my 2 small squares. I have this one on the bottom and this one on the top. And again, I need to figure out what direction I want them. I like this strata going like this. And which way do I want my flowers? Oh, there's so many good options. Okay, I think those leaves kind of feel like that. Okay. So I feel like this is going to be the directionality for that print and the directionality for this print. And now I can go ahead and put sides on them. And the sides are in my rust color. So I have 4 small and 4 large. So I'll go ahead and put those sides on. Now I have these all stitched up, and I want to make sure that the long piece is on the top, and that just keeps all of our lines straight. And then I have a piece of background that's going to go here, and then a piece of background that's going to go here, and then I have that sneaky piece of bottom frame from Unit B that's going to go up at the top. So let me go ahead and lay these out, and then I'll know what goes where for when I need to stitch. Alright, I have everything laid out for this next step. And the step that I'm looking at is this step here. And we're gonna walk right through the rest of this. We can stitch this piece onto here. And we can stitch this piece onto here. And then we can stitch this piece on there and then stitch these together. So I'm actually gonna start with this one first, and that'll allow me to chain piece, and I'm gonna show you what that means in terms of why I'm doing this first. So I was able to take this piece off of my chain, and now I can add this one on. Had I done this one second, it'd still be sitting underneath my machine, and I'd have to do needle up, press your foot up, and get a long tail of thread. This keeps me from having to do all that. And since y'all are all on board the chain piecing train, how about we go ahead and chain piece these while we've got a chain going under the machine, which means taking these 2 and stitching them together. Now remember, I did make a mistake with some of these half square triangle units back when we did Unit B. I want to avoid that mistake again. So yes, I need to make sure that this is facing up with my small piece next to it. And then these. Now I can start clipping some pieces off my chain, just leaving what's there in place. I don't need to press these yet, because I'm still doing all seams that are going the same direction. These are all vertical seams. So I can go ahead and stitch this top and this bottom together. I can clip this one off, and now I can go ahead and start pressing. This part is done until it gets stitched to this, but this part can get stitched here. Again, making sure that I'm putting the background piece with my corner facing, what is that, northeast? Or up and to the right. True story, since we're all friends here, I mix up my rights and lefts pretty often, like embarrassingly often. But my north, south, east, and west, no problems. That's natural to me. But my rights and lefts, I don't know. It's not right, but it just got left behind. Oh, that was a terrible pun. But aren't terrible puns the best puns? Okay, I'm just gonna finish pressing these all towards the background. And now making sure that I have that frame strip on top and that matches up with this piece of frame right here. I can stitch these together. Now, I didn't have to press at this step. I could have gone ahead and just stitched the other side, but my iron was handy. And I'm loving seeing how this is all coming together. And of course, I wanted to see if I'd gotten a perfect point. And that one isn't exactly perfect, but it is pretty stinking close, and we're gonna take it. Okay, I just need to stitch this piece on, and then this is ready to set aside, and I'm gonna work on the next portion. Okay, this is done. I can leave it on here as a chain instead of pulling the thread up, and I can already start laying out my next portion. I have these 4 large big pieces that go with this, and then I have these 2 small pieces which each get the rust colored frames. I need to be careful because this is getting the smaller frames and this is getting the larger frames. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's how I'm going to set this part up so that I can chain piece it. I've got my big piece and my side piece, my long strips, my side strips, and my focus, my long strips, then my side strips, then my focus, all on top of each other. So then I can grab my large piece, and since the sides go on first, they're sitting right on top. I'll just grab a side. And the next one, grab a side. Since these aren't square, I don't need to worry about directional up, down, left, right. Okay, this is the piece from before. I'm going to set this one aside for a minute because it will need to be pressed, and then I can add these on. Once each has its 2 sides, I'm going to press these open. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty good at video editing, but I've got a snoring puppy here in my sewing room, and I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to edit out her snores. So if you hear snoring puppy sounds, now you know what that is. Okay, as long as I've got my iron out, let's go ahead and finish up this segment. Okay, so I'm going to set this behind me with the other. Then I'm hoping I don't forget where they are. And now I can add these sides. Now that these three are stitched up, I can sew them together. These two get a strip between them. Here it is. And then a long strip on the side of this one to get it all together. And then we're just this one background strip away from getting it all put together. Making sure that these are directional in any way that I want. Okay, we'll go that. Okay, this piece. These now go together. So now I can press this seam and put this across, and then we're going to add our two other pieces to finish up our last unit for the gallery wall quilt. Now you'll see me repressing the seam over here. It's because it got flipped when I was sewing. So I want to keep the seam all going in the same direction, and I'm just going to flip it back and keep it all flipped. That way I don't have a weird tweak or twist in my seam allowance. And sometimes that'll happen, and that's a choice. You can clip that twist. I prefer not to clip twists when I can help it because I just feel like it weakens the seam. I do quilt my quilts to death, and by that I mean I like really, really dense free motion quilting. So if I did have to clip my seam allowances to undo a twist, it's not a big deal. But for me, since I got it here, I just went ahead and pressed it. Okay, so where am I at? I've got this piece, which is all the way over on the right. And then I have this piece, which comes next. And then I just have my last piece. 2 seams. Remember I talked about countdown? 2 seams until all our units are done. Ready? Let's stitch these up. Phew. Now I just need to add that last piece on here, and this has remember the missing frame up on the top. Boom, last seam on unit D, done. I just need to press those seams, and then I can set this aside for next week when we're going to put it all together. But I know some of y'all aren't going to want to wait. We are so close. So I'm going to give you a little bit of bonus footage here, and I'm going to walk you through how to finish putting it together. If you say, man, I love you, Caroline, but I don't need you to hold my hand through this process. Just give me a couple of quick tips, and I'm off to the races. I'm going to get this quilt top done today. Awesome. You are my people. Let me grab my little sheet here. And this is our sheet. It's page 7 in the pattern that'll show you how to put it all together. So what you're going to do, and it gives you all the instructions at the top, but you're going to stitch unit A and unit B together, and then you're going to press towards unit A. Then you're going to add on unit C, and you're going to press towards unit AB. And then you're going to add on unit D on the bottom, and you're going to press towards unit D. And then you're going to stitch on these side borders that we cut at the beginning. And then you're going to press towards the borders. Then you're going to stitch the top and bottom borders, and you're going to press towards the borders, and you're going to be done. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 seams. 7 seams until this top is complete. If you want to go ahead and do that now, go ahead and put on your favorite music and get grooving on finishing up this quilt. And if you say, hey, this has been awesome, I'm going to go ahead and press these seams and I will see you next week, then that's fantastic too. But before you go, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. I do find those comments and I answer them. And make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Even though we're almost done with the Gallery Wall Quilt, I have so much more awesome in store for you. And feel free to look at the archives. I have several other quilting, sewing alongs. I have so many other projects and crafty things you can find on my channel, so make sure you check some of those out as well. And one of my most popular videos is on free motion quilting. I have a simple free motion quilting video as well as a sequel to that. And we'll see if we can get some free motion quilting videos done on how to quilt this awesome quilt when we're done. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to catch me in the meantime, you can find me over on Instagram. I'm Craftmore, and I'll see y'all next week as we finish up our Gallery Wall Quilt Along.